Our epic tale begins with the legendary Monkey King himself soaring through the skies, heading straight for a seemingly endless army of enemies. Some of these foes are colossal, towering over the battlefield, and for most, this would be a fool's errand, but for Wukong, it's just another fight. It's obvious. The Celestials recognize Wukong's might, but they still underestimate him. They should have brought a bigger army. Nose in the air, he only laughs at the sight of them. As we get into the action, Wukong's disregard for their strength becomes clear. He laughs in their faces, and the tutorial wastes no time before we dive into disrespecting Erlang Shen, one of the most iconic figures in Chinese mythology. This game takes place after the events of Journey to the West, the novel that Black Myth Wukong draws inspiration from. This makes perfect sense when we look at Wukong's opening dialogue. My master, safe. Scriptures sound. That line hints at Journey to the West, where Wukong accompanies the monk Tang San Zhang on a pilgrimage to India to retrieve sacred scriptures. And at the end of that journey, Wukong is rewarded with the title of Buddha for his service. However, kicking it with the Celestials came with too many rules, and Wukong is rebellious and prideful by nature. He does not settle easily into a peaceful existence. Instead, he decides to leave the Celestial Court, choosing to live in freedom back on his mountain. Naturally, the court did not take kindly to this, and so feeling disrespected and perhaps threatened by Wukong's power, they send the Celestial army, led by Erlang Shen, to subdue him and bring him back. So as I'm tanking blows from Celestials, Erlang decides to step up by dropping a giant axe on me. Dodging out of the way, I try to lure them into a ground fight, but just as things seem to be going well, something unexpected happens. A band appears around Wukong's head, disabling him entirely. Erlang seizes the opportunity and smashes us into a mountain, leaving behind nothing but a giant stone. Ages pass, and a monkey tells the tale of Sun Wukong, and also that Wukong's spirit was divided into 6 relics and scattered across the lands.
Into 6 relics he turned, and separately they escaped, choosing to stay hidden.
He then encourages us, the Destined One, to go seek the 6 senses of the Great Sage and return them to Mount Huaguo in order to revive Sun Wukong. Now at this point, I'm wondering, who are we? Are we a descendant of Sun Wukong, a relative, just another monkey of the same kind? Maybe a reincarnated version of Sun Wukong? We make our way into the forest and are met with Turnip Guy. He looks like a turnip to me. Keeper of the Black Mountain is his name. He directs us to Guanyin Temple when a howling interrupts the conversation. So then he dips and tells us that even if we forgot this place still remembers us. So we're left alone to familiarize ourselves with our footing, fighting, and gathering mechanics in the game, and then we meet a mini-boss, Bullguard. Now in the middle of us smacking him around, a cutscene ensues where Turnip Guy teaches us the immobilization spell. After finishing up the Bullguard, we explore the forest further along our way to Guanyin Temple. Here, Turnip Guy turns us into a golden cicada so that we can avoid any confrontation in this action RPG. But this isn't a pacifist run, so I immediately say forget that noise, turn back into a monkey, and start bonking heads with my pole. Along the way to the temple, I take out 2 more bosses, Guangzhi and the Wandering White, absorbing their spirits, allowing me to transform into them. Now, the Wandering White did kick my butt for about an hour, I just want to say that. And then our next boss is a fight against a giant wolf named Ling Chuzi, whom we dispose of on our first try. Later down the road, we run into our first human-looking character named Wise Master, and he imbues us with the power, well, specifically our gourd. He takes our gourd without our permission, and then imbues it with the power to absorb souls, which then allows us to take the powers of past and upcoming foes such as our next boss, Guang Mu. Delivering the final blow to Guang Mu, he says that we are like his master, possession obsessed. I think his master is called the Black Wind King, but I'm not sure what he means by possession obsessed.
My master, obsession obsessed. You are just like him.
Turnip Guy, narrating in the background, says that he remembers evil monks encouraging somebody named Elder Chinche to burn the great sage and Tang monk alive, although at this point in the story, I still don't know who many of these characters are, but Turnip Guy says that's these two. I guess he thought they burned in a temple fire, only to be surprised that they actually turned into Yaoguais. By the way, if you don't know what a Yaoguai is, simply in Chinese mythology, they're basically beings with supernatural abilities. They're not exactly demons or monsters, but I'm not going to dive into it. You get the point. You can call them demons or monsters. Running along to the next area, covered in water, we fight a snake Yaoguai called the White-Clad Noble. And I was actually a bit curious, so I looked this up. In the book Journey to the West, Sun Wukong beats him with one hit. However, that's not going to be the case here. This slithering serpent gave me a hard time, but it wasn't too long before I eventually got him. And with his final breath, he tells us that he was only doing his job on the bear's order.
I feign my loyalty to guard this path on the bear's order. Your destiny's bleak and stark. In its grip, we share the mark.
And we actually end up meeting the bear, aka the Black Wind King, in the Guanyin Temple. He tells us that he had spent the last 500 years rebuilding this temple, but that he knew that we would return. So is this game taking place 500 years after our fight with the Celestial Army? The king's dialogue during this fight does reveal quite a bit. He says things like how we, Wukong, ruined everything, and then when we transform into the Red Tide, the Fire Wolf, one of the earlier bosses, the Black Wind King recognizes us and tells us that we're not going to burn down the temple again. I feel like there's a lot in this story that I'm unaware of, and much of it is not being explicitly told to us. Now, regardless, we beat the crap out of the Black Wind King, and then he calls us cheap before he decides to go run off, challenging us on top of the mountain. And then Turnip Guy shows up again and bestows us with a new spell called Cloud Step, which helps us as we easily take down the Black Wind King again, except this time he's in his Black Bear Guai form. Now I have to say this boss was pretty easy. It didn't take me over an hour to die to him. Taking advantage of our transformation, we slay the bear and obtain our first relic. We then watch some top-tier anime inside the video game, which provides what I think to be context on the story that happened here. But it only opened up more questions. Seriously, if you know the backstory and how everybody is connected, please enlighten me. Heading into Chapter 2, we somehow end up in the desert where a headless musician is having a concert. I don't know how or why, but we're riddled with arrows, seemingly on the verge of dying, when the musician heals us and then he disappears. I don't know where to go except forward, and eventually I do see a giant tornado in the distance and figure that is the direction that I must go to, probably, to get the second relic, so I aimed in that general direction. On the way, I beat a toad, I helped a wolf who actually gives me drugs and tells me I can get more drugs from him later at his furnace, which I'm assuming is where he cooks his drugs. And then I killed a Rat King's second son, after which he flees. So I explore some more, engaging in battle with an Earth Wolf who jumps out of bounds and then respawns with full health. Perfect. Another hour I do get the wolf and then I take his soul. Shortly thereafter, I end up finding where the Rat King went off to. He went to go get his first son to come kill me. But his plan completely backfires because his son, his hulk of a son, ends up eating him. And after exterminating that rat, I walked up to the Crouching Tiger Hidden Temple. And I do this in games all the time, where I think that if the next area is where I am supposed to go, I backtrack to explore the area behind me to see if I miss anything. Do you guys do that? Like, I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. But while I'm doing this, I come across a boss called a Stone Vanguard. I make quick work of him, turning this giant stone into pebbles, and I definitely did not die over 30 times. Moving forward, I take a meditation break and then sand surf down to a bridge where the headless musician shows up and then grants me the ability to use Shadow Clone Jutsu. It's interesting how all these characters are just giving me powers. Or is it because they know who I am and what I'm trying to do, so they think it's only right? Along my path, I fight a guy called the Gore-Eye Taoist who seems to have the Mog blood build, poking his stick into the air and spewing blood out like he's at the Blood Palace. Any Elden Ring players here? Feeling confident and empowered after putting the beat down on some bosses, leveling up, and then gaining my Shadow Clone's ability, I go back to the Tiger Temple to find a kitty having a drink from a pool of blood. He actually reminds me of Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda, and in my first fight with him, I think I fared pretty well. I felt evenly matched. Up until the point where he slices me up and then says, "Monkey brains were a proper treat."
Monkey brain could be a proper treat. What's left is the king's.
You know, that deeply messed me up on a spiritual level, and I think it's crazy that a video game boss was able to get into my head. Guys, I tried drugs and everything under the sun to beat him. My confidence was waning with every single death. And I guess I can kind of see where people are coming from comparing it to a Souls game, but it just plays differently. I don't think it's that hard also. After a coffee break, I did have a final showdown with a tiger, and after beating him, the headless musician gives me the stone skin ability. A stone tiger then opens up its head in the middle of the pool, swallowing the blood and opening a path for us. Jumping down and moving forward, it looks like I stumbled across the wrong neighborhood because I immediately get jumped like Mahito out of Jujutsu Kaisen. I managed to escape with a little bit of my life left. Finding the drug wolf, I have him fire up his furnace and then I pill up. Heading down, I meet my first real roadblock in the game. I died for over 3 hours against the Yellow Wind Sage, in part because he was a hard boss, and the other part was because I think there was a bit of poor design on the battlefield. Sometimes the annoying rat would jump out of bounds and I couldn't reach him. Other times the tornadoes that he summoned would completely skew my vision or just knock me out. And like this boss was just really annoying, especially when he would kick me into a cutscene of me getting my ass whooped. Oh my god, no. What the fuck was that, dude? Oh my god. Oh my god. However, while dying, it did give me the opportunity to notice and appreciate the sand physics in this game because they are masterfully done. The attention to detail in this game is an absolute wake-up call for the bigger AAA game companies that need to do better. Now, after learning his moves, adapting, and with a little bit of luck, I came out on top. I wanted to scream victory at the top of my lungs, but it was like 3 a.m. and my wife was sleeping. I love my wife, so I just couldn't scream. Out of nowhere, the headless musician shows up, calls the rat I just disposed of his disciple, and then admonishes him for cutting off his head to steal his power, and then it turns out he was Bodhisattva Lanxi.
I am Bodhisattva Lanxi of New Mount Sumeru.
He explains that when Sun Wukong fell and his relics dispersed, the rat found one of his relics, but he was too weak to utilize its power. We're then shown an interesting cutscene, a stop-motion animation of a guy who finds a hurt fox, nurses it, but then it turns out to be a pretty woman. I think it's a lady fox Yaoguai. I don't know if it's a demon or what, but he lives a long life with the fox lady, courting her, having kids with the fox lady, and then growing old with her. But eventually, one day he comes home to see his family is massacred. But in the room is his wife, with her fox face on, eating their kid. This horror wakes him up, and it's just a dream, but it turned into a nightmare. And with that, he decides to kill the fox and then just go about his day. Rolling into Chapter 3, we see a chunky Buddha kid who hides and then turns into a small statue when a Yaoguai walks by. And by the way, this has to be like the longest chapter in the entire game. I swear I was here for like 10 hours. This place was massive. So we, for some reason, ended up here in the Snowy Mountains, and I really wish we were told how we get around to these places, because I just have no idea. I have no idea how the transition works here. Venturing through the snow, we come across these frozen undead warriors and an oversized demonic monkey, or at least I think it's a monkey. Regardless, we fight him. Turns out his name is Macaque Chief, and he runs once we dwindle his health down a bit. And curiosity did get the better part of me here. I looked it up. A macaque is actually a type of monkey, so he is a monkey. Ascending the mountain, I meet an annoying flying pig devil, a dangerously acrobatic demon who was a bit troublesome for me to kill, and then I got lost for a really, really long time. I was walking back and forth for probably the better part of 40 minutes, and then I finally realized that there was another path I could walk down near where I fought the acrobatic demon. As we approach this withered tree, probably one of the most disturbing and weird Yaoguais I've seen is this man chicken. It's the head of a man with a chicken's body, and this man chicken begins talking to me. Chicken Man is the keeper of the New West. He welcomes me and then, without consent, transforms me into a bat. I mean, is it really that hard to ask me first? So there I am, following the chicken, flying through the snowy mountains and then taking in the stunning sights. Arriving at a frozen lake, the chicken man tells me that the temple on the lake has exactly what I need, that the lord of this land is away, and that I should grab it and leave. As I close in on the temple, I notice something big, and it's glowing red, and it's swimming underneath the ice-covered lake. A laugh catches Wukong's attention. It's the Buddha Kid, who talks smack about Sun Wukong and how he's led all of us to him. Which begs the question, how many other monkeys have come here before me? He holds up a small sack in his hand and says he can barely fit us in there anymore, right before summoning a dragon. Oh, and my mind is blown because I never thought that I would actually get to fight a dragon in this game. Immediately, it bites and ganks me. I mean, color me impressed because at this point, I was still astounded that I was fighting a majestic dragon. The devs did an excellent job with designing and developing their seemingly over 100 bosses in Black Myth Wukong. It's like they were having a discussion, the development team, and they were like, oh, how many bosses should we have? And one guy said, yes. After taking some time to learn the dragon's patterns and moves, and learning that it was actually susceptible to being staggered, I make quick work of it. It was a fun fight, and I learned that being shocked sucks, but overall, it was more intimidating than anything. Defeating the dragon sends it spiraling down and crashing into the lake, pulling us down with it. When we get out, we are immediately chased, and I don't know why we're running. It seems kind of out of character for the Destined One, but the macaque shows up and then knocks us out. We wake up in the Pagoda realm, a jail of sorts, with a giant spinning tower in the center and enemies around every corner. I personally hated it down here. This was my least favorite level. I feel like the developers just wanted to make me mad. Not me specifically, but this is just something that really ticks me off. I already don't like mazes or puzzles. Like, I just hate them. And then there's this, I think it's called a berserk effect, where the environment goes gray, our health bar diminishes, and Wukong seemingly takes more damage, but he also does more damage. But above all, platforms. The developers won. Pissed me off. I hate platforming. Not that we had to do much of it, but there were a couple instances down here where I had been knocked off and fell to my death. But eventually, we find our way up and out of this hole. And then our next fight is an encounter against an electric-type Pokemon at the top of the tower. After defeating it and stabbing it in the face, we take its soul, and now it's time to get back on track to find the third relic. Wukong isn't going to revive himself. Kind of. Later down the path, we fight a Lovecraftian-looking octopus horror demon, a humanoid bird guy with a giant fan, and as we approach a temple entrance, guess who's back? The macaque. And he's trying to get the wise master, who is also here, and I realize he must be very powerful because he's just straight chillin' inside a ring of fire, while an evil monkey is trying to break his barrier. He's just sitting there, drinking and reciting poetry, and he's got the macaque stressed. Just a quick side note, I actually finished the long side quest where you need to beat the 4 secret long bosses, and on the final long, we see Yellow Long step out of the Wise Master and turn into his dragon form before fusing with his Long brothers in the Golden Dragon Staff. So, my question is, was Yellow Long this Wise Master the whole time? But then again, the old guy talks to the dragon like they're separate entities, so maybe Yellow Long was just hiding inside of him? Why was the Wise Master so powerful? Like I said, more questions than answers, or more questions that lead into more questions. I just hope they answer and reveal more about this guy's story in the upcoming DLC. But back to the main quest, we find ourselves meeting with our next boss, a Yao Guai lady, and she's talking to somebody who appears to be locked in some sort of giant metal container of some sorts. Now, this took me a little while to understand, but whoever is inside just told the Yao Guai woman to join him inside for some yin-yang practice. Gold symbols, that's what they're called. After whomever is inside bangs the symbol, it rings loudly, shaking the land. Only, we're not on land. Instead, we find ourselves on a giant tortoise, who apparently is a general. The woman Yao Guai's name is Kang Jin Star, and I can fix her. But first, we need to defeat her, long pole style. She actually wasn't too easy. She did a lot of electric moves, and I was having trouble dodging, but then she turned into a giant dragon in our fight, which was pretty cool. I think on my 5th try, I decided to use drugs to help enhance my performance with her, and finally, I was able to take her down. She transforms into a dragon again, and I think she's trying to escape, but I grab on and use her body to smash into the gold symbols, releasing a cute little boar with a rake. He relents at Kang Jin Star, noting that back at the court, he wouldn't have even looked at her. That's mean. Also, can we note here that this boar is someone from the Celestial Court? He turns to look at us, seemingly with recognition, and he says,
"A furry coat and a pinched face. Luck's all you've got." "Great, another mute. Whatever. Let's not dally."
And again, it really makes me wonder, how many monkeys preceded me? How many destined ones have there been? Because this boar seems to be over it. Like he's done this multiple times before, and he's just over it. The boar divulges that the old monkey from the beginning of the game asked him to come here to help us on our journey. Then the boar transforms into a black wind, and now I'm wondering, how strong is he? He's so chill, and he has this extreme air of confidence around him. Standing at the head of the tortoise, the boar tells us that we need to find somebody called Yellow Brow, and then he called my might meager. The giant world tortoise takes us to land, and he's actually a friend of the boar, who I realize is now accompanying me. It's cool. It's cool to have a little companion following you around and actually putting in work against our enemies. While exploring, the boar sees a small dragon in the water and calls him a familiar face. The boar tells us to tell him that Admiral Bajie is here, giving us more information about himself. When we approach the dragon, it turns out it's a boss fight, but Bajie tells us to take it easy on him because he's a friend. However, even after beating him, he doesn't tell us much other than whine about how he was cast down to Earth, stripped of his powers. I'm pretty sure there's a side quest for him. I didn't do it.
And forced to suffer your torment.
At a pavilion, Bajie wants to rest. And when we get there, we see the chonky Buddha kid is there. Suspicious, Bajie calls him out and argues, but the kid only hints to us that we should probably pray to the Buddha statues here, and that is going to open up our path. After we do that, we go back to talk to the kid, and Bajie is such a character. I mean, I would get him tattooed on my arm or something. Seriously. He calls this cute kid chubby, and then he attacks him, demanding to know where the path is. But the kid disappears to the top of the summit and makes fun of him for throwing a tantrum at his age, whilst showing us where to go. Following the new path that's opened up, defeating the boss here, snowboarding down the hill, we meet the spirit of the fox lady from the stop-motion cutscene we saw before Chapter 3 starts. Her story lines up with what we saw. Then she gives us a side quest to basically kill the dude that killed her so her spirit could rest, which I didn't do right away, but I did go back and finish that quest later.
Aren't you dead already? For years, I've prayed you'd find peace. You wouldn't understand my agony when I took your life.
Some more boss fights and exploring later, we finally arrive at New Thunderclap Temple. After beating up a bunch of blind monks who just love to stagger, another Eldritch still wakes the deep type of Yao Guai who hits way too hard to be fair, some other impressive enemies and another boss, we reach the very top temple. Opening the doors, we see the Buddha Kid again, only it's not the same one, it's Yellowbrow, the main boss that we've been looking for. And I just noticed this, but the one who unleashed the dragon on us back at the lake is different from the playful Buddha Kid back at the beginning of the game and back at the pavilion. A small detail that probably only the most attention to detailed players would have noticed is that the evil Buddha wears a yellow robe and the good Buddha wears a blue one. While fighting Yellowbrow after we deplete his health, he gets cheap and traps us in his sack. Macaque and Bajie are in there fighting, with Bajie stating that Yellowbrow must have woven Wukong's strength into the bag.
Idiot! That trickster caught you too! This wicked sack is much more vicious than before, nurturing such evilness! Yellowbrow must have woven Wukong's strength into it. That bastard!
Regardless, we take down Macaque, and as I'm about to deliver the final blow, the bag's vicious influence takes over, transforming us into the Macaque. Yellowbrow trying to incite the evil inside of us, telling us that we are evil and bloodthirsty, plucks our tiny selves out of the bag and down in front of a swath of enemies that we are meant to cut down. But I ignore them because I don't like being told what to do, and I go straight to the boss fight against Yellowbrow. Admittedly, this fight took a while, but it was because up until this point I had not been utilizing the heavy smash ability. You see, at certain intervals in this fight, Yellowbrow is going to put up his bronze skin, which works just like stone skin. It makes it so that our attacks just bounce off. But I learned that if you use a charged heavy attack, his skin breaks right off. I think you gotta hit him like once or twice. One other annoying part of this boss fight includes the scripted battle cutscenes where he messes you up and you actually take damage here.
Behold my battle, feel your horn. How can Mount Lanxi match its magnificence?
But all in all, it wasn't too hard of a fight. It was just a testament to how great the devs subtly encouraged and insisted you learn and implement the other mechanics in the game. Yellowbrow attempts to flee outside, which for some reason takes us back to the frozen lake again. He doesn't get too far. He falls under the ice. The Buddha Kid shows up, explains that Yellowbrow stole his seed sack and his image, and also used Wukong's relic to make the sack a soul-snatching sack.
He also took my look and my name to trick his old foes into vengeance.
Gah, you potbelly! I should have figured out it was you!
Jeez, Wukong's relics are mighty powerful. I mean, these guys are just like taking his relics and using them to just do like some dirty, dastardly stuff. The Buddha Kid turns to us and says that we might be the right monkey.
Fortune favors you, Bajie. But I see great potential in this young one. He might just be... the right monkey.
Enough of this empty talk! I don't care if Yellowbrow drowns in the lake. We can't have Wukong's relic sink with him.
right before he rips Bajie's rake from his hand and turns it into a fishing pole, yanking Wukong's relic out of the lake. It's a giant flying fish, and with that we have our third relic. Now, probably one of the most disturbed and demented, deranged animations I've seen in a very long time is in this following cutscene. A creature washes up on an impoverished and ill-stricken town. Shortly after, the humans discover that inside of the creature are riches and healing properties. They begin to worship the creature, bringing it offerings, to which the creature responds by blessing them with gifts inside of him. The village begins to heal and prosper until one evening during an offering ceremony where one very greedy man rushes up to the creature to eviscerate it. Out bleeds riches as the creature bellows in pain. Before you know it, the whole village, foaming at the mouth with greed, rips into this creature, tearing it apart limb from limb with their bare hands, reaping everything out of the creature as it wails in anguish. Humans are the most vile creatures. The scene ends with the creature, cleaved to the bone, staring out to the ocean, when a monk named Jingchanzi walks up to the creature. It's not too explicit what happened here, but I think these two made a bet. The creature betting humans are greedy or bad or evil, with Jingchanzi arguing against it.
Once again, I proved it to you, Jinshanzu.
You chose a means to an end, not to a proof. You sow chaos in hearts just for the sake of winning. How absurd and pathetic.
If not for winning, why debate over means and ends?
Transitioning forward, we find ourselves now being carried inside of a chest, now in a dark and eerie forest. The enemies here having multiple limbs and some flying like insects in combination with the spiderwebs give me a hint that we're probably going to be dealing with spiders during Chapter 4. Moving through this village, we come up to these large double doors, but before going in, Bajie puts on a disguise and then disguises me as well to look like a Yaoguai. The guard lets us in to tell us that the feast is ready. Only, it's not a party. A girl comes out and immediately pegs us for imposters. Words are exchanged.
Well, well. Your rudeness is forgiven. Show some respect. Maybe I'll kindly pay your mother a visit.
Visit or not, I'm afraid that is not your call.
She transforms into a giant spider. We fight, we win, and before she runs off, she sticks Bajie with a gold needle of some sort and then goads us into chasing after her. Which, of course, we do.
Flee now if you're too scared to come in.
Scared, my hoof! I'll destroy this rotten hole right now! Let's see where else you'd build your lair!
Blindly jumping down the spider hole, we land in a giant spider web. A giant spider approaches, but instead of killing us, the spider is kind enough to just knock us out. Weirdly enough, we wake up on a bed and begin to look for Bajie. Moving through the webbed hollow, we meet up with another woman who doesn't seem very hostile. She denotes that we are up already and tells us to find the pig before it's too late. I think she's a friend, or at least not an enemy. After defeating a centipede hell-bent on steamrolling us and a hand bug monster that reminds me a bit of Master Hand from Super Smash Bros., the emo lady uses the hand bug to make a bridge for us, then laments about not being able to escape this mountain.
I've laid your path for you. But where will my path be? From now on, we're both on our own.
I never found out why she's helping us, but a little bit down the path, we see all these girls talking together. They're sisters, and they have Bajie with them, hypnotized. They were trying to bring Bajie to their mother to have them married, whatever that implies. After the spider ladies have left, we go over to try and save him, but he comes out and begins attacking us. I think whatever spell they have on him turned him evil, but We whoop him, and then he runs off. Catching up to him in a watery opening, we put his ass on a silver platter again and then hand it to him. But he didn't like that, so he tried trampling us in his giant boar form. But we nail him from the side, kicking him back into his cute little stubby boar form. Then, a mirror we got at some point floats over to Bajie, and when he looks in the mirror, he sees the true reflection of himself. This whole time, I thought he was just always a pig, but no, he was actually somebody who was turned into a pig. I guess. But if you know the true backstory to Bajie, please let me know. The gold needle flips out of his head, and a spiderweb takes Bajie away. Turns out Spider Mommy was the one who grabbed him. Eavesdropping on their conversation, we gather that they have a past and that it runs deep. I guess at one point Bajie was ordered to clean up Spider-Mom and her sisters, and then she says a chilling line.
And more than that, I even remember how I survived on my sister's flesh after you left.
Damn, that messed me up too. She ate her sisters. She ate the flesh of her sisters just to survive. And no wonder why she harbors so much hate for him. On her way out, she summons millions of tiny spiders to chase us, and all of them come barreling in like something out of a scary movie. Out of curiosity, I wanted to see what would have happened if I didn't run, and what would happen if I used Cloud Step. Turns out you just die. But after escaping the spider horde by falling off a ledge, we're saved by Sad Spider Girl and end up back on the mountain. We fight some more enemies, including a tiger with a long neck, a school of students and their beetle teacher who seemed more than happy to be released from living. We meet the stalking wise master again, and then we finally catch up to the spider women. It turns out they went to ask for help from this Yao Guai, who I assume is their next in command, and he looks like absolute trouble. He is the 100-eyed Taoist master. Spider-Mom tells him that Wukong is back, but her plan backfires because 100 Eyes consumes her and her power, causing the Spider Daughters to lash out at him. So while they're trying to jump him, I join in on the fight in the hopes that we could outnumber him. This does not happen. The Spider Girls disappear. I don't know where they went to, but this boss really put a strain on my relationship with my controller. This was the next boss that I was dying to for over 3 hours. I was trying everything I had to beat him. Drugs, planning, even a YouTube tutorial which told me to get a Weaver Needle or something, which would knock him out of his second phase, making him an easier fight. But I am a masochist. And apparently so is this guy, because he just deep-throated a sword and got off on it. With his newfound power from swallowing the sword, he continued to pound me harder and harder, with each defeat bringing me closer to tears. Absolutely nothing was working. I was desperately popping enhancement pills and spamming Shadow Clone Jutsu like Naruto, but he was still clapping my cheeks. This guy was relentless, especially in his second form. I mean, he was like a debt collector or something. At this point, it was 4 a.m., and my wife actually slid into my DMs asking me on Discord if everything was okay. She doesn't bother texting my phone anymore. I think she's learned to just hit me up on Discord because I don't look at my phone when I'm playing video games. Oh, but man, I had to take a break for this one. So I took a hot shower to cool off, during which I asked, was this journey even worth it? Was Sun Wukong worth reviving? Was this video worth doing? Are people even going to watch, like, comment, or subscribe? But in this moment of weakness, I heard voices in my head, calling me maidenless, or that I should just get good. That this guy was nothing compared to the promised consort Radon, or Melania, Blade of Mikola, or the annoying guardian ape from Sekiro. That's when I snapped. The flames inside of me were now stoked, and this guy, this 100-eyed Taoist spider, whatever he's called, was done for. I turned on the cold water to wake me up, but the fire inside of me turned it warm. I hopped out of the shower, steam rising off of my skin. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down, and then I slayed the 100-eyed Taoist. nobody calls me maidenless. I love my wife.
Grandmaster, I need you!
Convinced that this guy was the hardest boss in Black Myth Wukong, I entered Chapter 5 with newfound glory. But not before watching these spider daughters rushing to help their dying mother, without so much as a thank you to me. The cameraman pans in on Bajie's face as he struggles to hold back tears. The following animation dives deeper into Zhu Bajie and the Violet Spider's past. However, I still didn't clearly understand everything. We see him chase a girl with white hair that we haven't seen before, but then he bumps into another girl who kind of looks like Spider Mommy. Bajie seems to be interested in her, but he also remembers that he was chasing that first girl. And when he does find her, he finds out that she already has a man. They both look celestial, and the dude glares at Bajie and sends him down a hole. Bajie wakes up, and then another girl comes up smiling to him, but he seems to already know her, and as he goes after her, he turns into a pig, which is the one that we're familiar with. When the girl sees him, she's horrified. Understandably, our favorite boar runs off in tears. And later he finds Spider Mommy taking a bath in a forest. Excitedly, he runs to her and she smiles and she's happy to see him. And then while in the water, they show each other their true forms. Hers is the spider and his is the giant boar. And then the boar and spider hug it out. They just hug, that's all they do. They don't do anything else. The scene ends with time showing how it progressively affected them both, until Bajie ends up joining Wukong on his journey to the west. And damn, Bajie's story, that messed me up on a spiritual level too. But also, this boar, this dude, and women, man. 3 girls, 1 cutscene. Chapter 5 opens with Bajie and the Destined One wrecking some enemies on a mountain that's been razed by flames. Progressing forward as fire rains down on us, we try fighting a bull. Now of course it kills us because I can't multitask and I'm easily distracted by the shiny balls of fire descending from the sky. So I decide to try summoning my shadow clones to take care of the cart demon that's up there, and now that I can focus, I put the bull on his knees. He apologizes for attacking me, saying that it was an accident and that he's happy to see me. Right after which, he tells me that the Bull King has the relic that I'm looking for. On my way to find said Bull King, I slay some fire Digimon, a giant holding a skeleton, and learn that I could have been using instant transmission this whole time to get back to my shrines instead of walking all the way back. 5 chapters in, and I had no clue. In the distance, I hear a girl crying for help, and after destroying another fire-spewing demon cart, I come face to face with 2 giant faces. One who breathes fire and another who blows air. These guys weren't too hard. I just needed to dodge them and wait until they stopped moving before wailing out on them. After beating them, we save the fox, who turns out to be a girl. She says that she is the daughter of the Bull King, that her brother turned bad and tried to kill the parents for more power. And this also explains why the entire mountain has been destroyed by fire. The ever-suspicious Bajie states that Bull King was stronger than both he and Wukong combined, and that the girl's mother's fan was really strong too. So he doesn't believe that her brother could have done so much damage, but she explains that her parents would have never harmed their son. After asking for our aid, we follow her towards the Bull King, seeing the effects of her brother's fire. She insists that we need her mother's fan to extinguish the flames. Strolling through the volcanic lands, we come across this one enemy who, on multiple occasions, would jump off a cliff instead of fighting us. He probably didn't want to fight us, so I'm convinced he thought that we would be gone and that he would get to live because he runs all the way around and back. And he's probably surprised to see that I'm still here because he did the same thing again, jumping off the cliff. And again, I waited for him a third time. I gank him finally, and then his soul tries to do the same thing by leaving and floating into the ground. Moving on up, we take care of Cloudy Mist and Misty Cloud. Really annoying name, really annoying duo. Lots of disappearing and reappearing, trying to confuse us, but not too difficult once you get the hang of it. And continuing on, and completely forgetting that I have an artifact that negates fire damage, I run across the lava to get to the next location. I say hi to the Wise Master again, and then enter a chamber hall where the Fox Girl and her stepmother are having a conversation. Fox Girl wants help, stepmom says no, and there is another who is in the audience hall too. So he starts talking about the Destined One and Wukong's rebirth, and then he tells stepmom that basically it's about to go down bad. Then he reveals that he's been down bad for her as well, professing his love to her. Now stepmom's demeanor changes and she begins to entertain his words. But it turns out that it was Bajie playing a prank this whole time.
What's in the blazes?
No tricks here. It's just my hoof. You deserve to know before we kiss.
You will live to repent this! Filthy lowlife! You dare take her form and beguile me!
My old friend, wasn't it fun? Have we not been this close since our carnage in the fox den?
You abhorrent fraud!
I also think that he was actually being smart, trying to get the Fox Girl to fess up or to catch her slipping as well. But this guy gets mad at Bajie, understandably, probably embarrassed for confessing his love and being made a fool of. He activates his domain expansion and we go in for a boss fight. He isn't the hardest boss fight. I mean, he does some yin and yang moves. He summons some enemies and also that horse that we keep seeing throughout the chapters. And then he summons a giant fish that eats Bajie. Not hard, again, but the fish did do this one move that annoyed the crap out of me. Shooting these black energy balls that stun locked me into place while I just took all of these balls to the face. After defeating this boss, he just runs off. Bajie shares that he was a servant back then and that he'd become ruined by Wukong and also by falling for the wrong woman. Continuing up the path, we smacked some more enemies, destroyed another cart, meditated a bit, and then we meet the true boss of this area. The giant metal ball that rolls right over anything in its path. Eventually, with timing and patience, we get it. Then we meet up with the Fox Girl, and how she got past the metal ball is beyond me. But she uses her mom's step fan to blow the flames out, and that giant metal ball is barreling back towards us. So Bajie transforms and tackles the ball tusk first, then he falls off the mountain, but he's good, so we go to talk to the Bull King. The Fox Girl tells her dad that since the Destined One is here, he can give Wukong's relic to us. But the Bull King immediately calls BS and unveils the disguise. It was his son the whole time, the Red Boy, trying to trick everyone in order to obtain Wukong's relic. Actually, during one of the fights with him, during this boss fight, he actually glitched on me, and he just didn't want to come down, so I was actually forced to restart the game. Now, upon defeating the Red Boy, the Bull King gives us the relic. It was inside his belly the whole time, but before we get our hands on it, the Red Boy snatches it, eats it, absorbs the power, and then we have to fight him again in his second form. This was actually a fun fight that almost reminded me of Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. It was just a fun, cool boss fight filled with a lot of action. But after beating him, his mommy shows up, begs us not to kill him, offering her fan and a promise that they will never leave the mountain. But their son would rather die than accept defeat.
You shall never witness it.
And with that, we take our fifth relic. And I realized that the duration of this game, we don't really see Sun Wukong all that much. Like, we haven't seen him since the beginning, but we do see him in this next animated scene, this time with Wukong dying in the Bull King's arms because he fought all the main chapter bosses that we've fought already, all at once. This cutscene revealed that Sun Wukong and the Bull King have a profound history where once they fought together against Erlang and the Celestial Army. In one of the scenes, I think it's the Bull King's wife, the fan lady, she was forced to drink from a river that makes babies, giving birth to the Red Boy. She says that if it weren't for Wukong, that they could have lived happily ever after. So what I think happened was that the Celestial Court punished Bull King for rebelling against them during that fight with Wukong. And the Red Boy, enraged about discovering his origins, wanted Wukong's relic to take revenge against the Celestial Court. The part about this cutscene that confuses me is, I think it's Wukong or maybe a different Wukong, along with Bajie, subdue the Red Bull, I said Red Bull, subdue the Bull King, and then kill his wife, the Fox Girl's mom. Not the one we saw earlier protecting the Red Boy, but the Bull King gets pissed and then he turns colossal. So the Celestials, like 10 of them, all have to restrain him, and then one dude cuts off his head, with Wukong finally closing his eyes. The Bull King then opens up his eyes back to see Wukong dying in his arms now. It is here that Wukong explains with great profoundness that even just being alive is enough to be considered transgression in the eyes of the Celestials, which makes me feel a little bit badly and somewhat more so understanding as to why Wukong just wanted to be left alone and free on his mountain. Also, as to why he was pissed in the very beginning about the Celestials killing his kind, the Yaoguais. Sun Wukong wishes the bull well and tells him to stay away from his remains. One big question I have is, where is the real daughter? Where is the real Fox Girl? Because if the Red Boy was posing as her the whole time, where was she? Coming back full circle, we return back to Mount Huaguo. Bajie comments about coming back home, and then he says that we need to go see the old monkey who sent us off on our journey initially in the beginning. At this point, I'm still thinking about the cutscene because I think it's wild, it's crazy, it's insane to think that just being so powerful, just merely existing, is a threat and an insult to those in power. Perhaps the original novel, Journey to the West, may have had some deep insights about morality, society, and politics. At least that's what I'm thinking, right? Because even in real life, the powers that be don't want anyone else to have power, doing everything that they can to make sure that we stay down, to keep them down, which is exactly what the Celestials are doing here, sending the soldiers to try and stop us. Coming to the edge of a path where chains hang above us, a Supreme Inspector, who looks like an eagle but has a giant red hand for a face, descends upon us. Now, more than I'd like to admit, he was a handful. So much so that I needed to go train in other areas and then upgrade my gear. So I leveled up a bit, got the golden long staff, switched to shock resistant gear, and then I beat that hand so hard with my stick. I beat it so hard. Finally, he was defeated, and in the middle of my cutscene, my game crashed. One of my biggest gripes was how much this game crashes. And I'm running this on an NVIDIA RTX 4090 with an i9 13th gen CPU. I don't think I should ever have a problem currently running any game. Anyway, loading back into the game, I see that the boss is still there, so I beat him off again. And in a last-ditch effort, this flying hand grabs me and then flies into the sky with me so that we could fall to our death, presumably. But we choke him, we choke that hand to death, and as we're falling, Nimbus catches us. And now with the flying Nimbus, we can fly around the map. And Bajie explains that we were too heavy this entire time, and that's why he hasn't been flying us around. So for Chapter 6, we need to go around collecting Sun Wukong's gear. And these pieces of gear have been separated and infused with some of the creatures here. For example, landing onto a battlefield, a golden rhino comes charging at us, and he's our first victim. Bajie tries to overpower it by charging back at it to no avail. So after breaking its horn, we're able to put this rhino to rest, and then we get our golden armor. Next, we fight a deagle, who then turns bloody in his second form, but we end up getting Sun Wukong's boots off of that. Then I take care of a kung fu frog and then a poison golem before coming up to a giant grasshopper who we don't actually fight, but he acts more of like a puzzle, which I hate. I hate puzzles. So first and foremost, we need to have enough stamina to ride the grasshopper. And if you don't have a lot of stamina at this point, there's pills, there's some drugs that can help you last longer on this grasshopper. But you also need to remember, which I didn't do, that you need to use the artifact which negates fire damage in sort of the second phase of this interaction with the grasshopper. And you need this in order to rip off the antennae. Antennae? Is that how you say it? This grants you the helm of Sun Wukong. And then our next boss fight is absolutely wild. So, Bajie is trying to catch a praying mantis, and after watching Baki Hanma, I learned that these things are actually extremely dangerous. So the mantis gets pissed at Bajie and then proceeds to get inside of him to rearrange his guts. So Bajie shrinks us down and we go down his esophagus to have this crazy fight inside of Bajie's stomach, which eventually rewards us with Wukong's gauntlets. Now with the set complete, we then head over to a cave that has Wukong's staff. Bajie takes time to reminisce about his old friend and looks at the Destined One, who now, with the inherited armor and staff, looks exactly like Sun Wukong. Ascending towards the peak to meet the old monkey, the Celestials' army comes crashing down again on us, but they are of no consequence to us. As we reach the top of the mountain, right back to the beginning, the old monkey is nowhere to be seen. We see nothing but a giant stone, and as we lay hands on it, it opens up to us and we stumble in. It is here that we find the old monkey staring off into the golden sunset as water surrounds us. As he ferries us across the water, he tells us that we are in the memories of Sun Wukong. Then he gives us an abridged origin story for Sun Wukong, giving us context to the events prior to this game. See, Sun Wukong had always wanted the finer things in life, and he had the ability to get those things. He eventually becomes king of his lands, but he wanted more. He wanted a position at the Celestial Court. When Wukong wasn't invited to a feast, he got mad, and then he wrecked the palace. In another instance, in his adulthood, he had a urination prank in Chechi. Honestly, Sun Wukong sounds like a certified dick. As the old monkey explains Wukong's mischievous, insatiable, and rebellious nature, Bajie constantly tries to defend him and reason for him. Regardless, Sun Wukong was content with little and drunk in lust. Lust for power, lust for freedom, lust for everything without having to accept the things that are tied along to it. Wukong always wanted everything and more, even after he had everything, and so much of it. Bajie then realizes that this whole time, the old monkey was actually the sixth relic, the mind of Wukong. But the old monkey deflects it, saying that the sixth relic, the mind of Wukong, was actually us, the protagonist, the Destined One. We were the final relic the whole time. What a twist. I have not had my mind blown like this since the end of Harry Potter. He then explains that the Destined One, and this gets kind of confusing here, but I'll try my best. The Destined One is the one who sent himself on this journey to gather the relics to revive himself. The Destined One is and isn't Sun Wukong. Alright, so I was actually very curious and I had to look this up, but to the best of my current knowledge and understanding, during the fight with Erlang, that circlet that appeared on Wukong's head severely inflicts a staggeringly tremendous amount of pain as it shrinks and it hurts him whenever he's quote-unquote not behaving. With a Wukong depowered, Erlang encases him in the stone, but Wukong's plan to circumvent being depowered with the circlet, was to split himself into relics in order to be reborn without the circlet limiting his powers. The mind of Wukong, was the first relic and the most important one in order to initiate and attempt this journey that we've been taking. The old monkey knew that one of the monkeys on the mountain, including the ones that had already ventured and died trying to collect the relics, was the mind relic. He already knew that one of them was the destined ones. He just didn't know which monkey was the one. And then there is another twist later on. After going back to chapter 3 at the Great Pagoda to get the secret true ending, we have to fight and beat Erlang again. Here, we learn that Wukong had actually divided himself into 7 parts, not 6, with one of those parts, his essence, inside of Erlang's third eye. And it was there this whole time. I don't know how, I don't know why, or if Erlang even knew and agreed to help, and if so, why did he help? Because, I mean, I don't know. But Erlang did not kill Wukong. He himself even admits that he could never kill Wukong, that only Sun Wukong could kill Sun Wukong, and that this was the only way that he could be free from that binding inflicted upon him. I don't know. Again, more questions lead to more questions. The further I dove into it, the more questions that I had, and hopefully more is answered in the upcoming DLC. Yet, coming back to our river ride, we discover that the Wukong that we played in the beginning, as we knew him, is now gone. That specific one is going to be gone. But the intent was that the destined one would assemble the relics and merge the parts of Sun Wukong back together, which we do, starting out by beating the hollow shell of Wukong. Old Monkey states that Wukong created this place, and that this situation, this test if you will, was only meant to be for those who bear all of his relics, us, the protagonist, the destined one. Bajie, worried for us, unable to join in on the fight, urges us to run instead of bearing the mantle of Sun Wukong. Regardless, we step forward, ready to employ all the skills and wisdom we've learned throughout the game. This boss fight wasn't that difficult. I mean, it wasn't without its hardships, and I did die numerous times, but at no point did I ever feel like it was just stupid hard. Every time I died and failed, it was because of me, and I could see why and where I went wrong. After smashing the stone monkey, it's time for the next stage in this boss fight. Sun Wukong, in his hollow great sage form, emerges, and it's like a classic fight against our negative selves. This version of Wukong was much harder, yet I can't articulate how it felt like Sun Wukong was testing or even training the destined one to make sure and see that he was truly the worthy one. During this fight against the soulless embodiment of Sun Wukong, you can get a sense of that, because sometimes he would kick my teeth in, but then be kind enough to kick my pole back to me, egging me on to keep fighting. Or even in his second form, after ripping power out of me, he would do things like immobilize me, but not attack me. The developers also did a very sick thing during this fight. It was insane. It blew my mind. Third wall broken. They knew that we would try to use our Estus flask to heal. And when you try to do this, when you try to heal, Hollow Wukong would actually use the immobilization spell on you, and right before you drink, he's going to walk up to you, take it out of your hand, drink it himself, and then throw it back to us. That's crazy, because even the destined one was like, what the fuck? You can definitely see Sun Wukong's arrogance and character here. It really, honestly, it kind of made me a bit sad that we didn't get to play and see more of Sun Wukong, and instead we get stuck with the destined one who has absolutely no personality and doesn't talk during the entire 50 hours of gameplay. After defeating Hollow Sun Wukong, all the relics infuse within us, and then we hear the old monkey talk about how Sun Wukong may or may not have done all the things that were said he did, that he may or may have not attained Buddhahood, or that the real Sun Wukong died on the journey to the west, or that the journey to the west never actually happened. He picks up the circlet from out of the water, places it on our head, and we sit there and pray. The cameraman pans out of the rock, and we see a monkey just sleeping inside the rock. It looks like the old monkey because of the white fur, but as I'm writing this, I recall that Sun Wukong was born from a rock on a mountain. I think it's the Destined One who is now Sun Wukong once again, sleeping, waiting for rebirth, as it was, as it had been, as it will be.